All right. Well, Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s running mate, has revealed that the campaign is debating whether or not to stay in the race or join Trump. Watch this.
What my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines. I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November. And if that means that we stay in, and, there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as a party. 71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access, which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning. So, there's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Interesting. So there they are, Nicole Shanahan. There she is admitting that the RFK Jr. campaign is considering suspending their campaign, and either joining Trump or staying in the race and hoping to get that 5% so that they can actually start an independent party. What a tough decision. What a tough decision. What a tough decision. What's interesting about this is they clearly do not want Kamala Harris to win. And that is, I think, a shock for a lot of people who, Nicole has always come from more of the left, Silicon Valley executive. She was a Democrat. She believed all the stuff that Democrats said up until just very recently when she was red-pilled. And now here she is saying, we don't want to risk a Harris-Walz presidency, that they would rather join forces with Trump than risk a Harris-Walz presidency. And I think that, this makes a lot of sense for RFK Jr. I don't know for Nicole. I don't know really her stance on Israel-Palestine in particular. I know she says that that's something that her and Bobby have had heated debates about. So I don't think she's as the same alignment as he is on that. But it makes sense for them to join the Trump campaign. Both Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Trump, they're pretty aligned on a lot of the big stuff. When you look at Russia, they're very aligned on Russia. They want to ensure that there is no war. They'd rather make peace. They want to stop funding Ukraine. They want to force Ukraine into a position of a peace negotiation with Russia. They're both in alignment on that. The Democrats absolutely are not. You know that with Kamala Harris, because she's a puppet for Hillary Clinton, she 100% will be pushing for a war with Russia, not even just maintaining the same old, same old. She's going to push for a war with Russia, direct. They want to oust Putin. That is their goal. That is Hillary Clinton's goal. And Kamala Harris, being just the puppet for Hillary Clinton, will go full steam ahead because she wants that second term and needs all that Hillary Clinton money. So RFK Jr. is more aligned with Trump. And RFK Jr. is aligned with Trump when it comes to Israel. They're both very pro-Israel, uncomfortably pro-Israel, but they're both aligned there. So that makes more sense. Of course, the Democrats are also pro-Israel, so that's not really a difference there. But Trump is more blatantly, and I would say RFK Jr., he's been more mum, but lately, he tries to avoid that topic, whereas the others kind of openly engage it and talk about it all the time. But when he has talked about it, he's been extremely pro-Israel to a level that makes zero sense to his supporters. They agree on border policies. They want to see a strong border. RFK Jr.'s been to the border. He's done segments about the border. He wants to see a strong border. We've heard him on the phone with Trump, where Trump was saying, yeah, those vaccines, I don't know about those. Basically saying, yeah, maybe they've even hurt people. I don't think so. So he's in line there where, the Democrats are never going to talk to RFK Jr. like that about the vaccines. So he's way more in line with Trump than he is certainly with the Harris-Walz campaign. And if you care about not going to war with Russia, and if you also care about not seeing the next pandemic, then Harris-Walz would be a nightmare as the next presidency, because that they're going to give us both. They're going to give us a war with Russia, and also, in order to distract us from the war with Russia that they've started, they're going to start another pandemic, monkeypox or something, and we're all going to be shutting down. I mean, there's a real risk of this. I'd like to say there's no way that we would go through that again, but I've been wrong about the level of insanity the Democrats actually, to their actual level of insanity. I keep giving them a benefit of the doubt, and I just should stop because they've proven me wrong over and over and over again. They have no sanity left. So there is a possibility of both of those things happening, and I think those would be absolutely devastating to the country. So I understand the very difficult position that RFK Jr. is in. Do they risk it and take votes from Trump and risk that Harris-Walz presidency, but they potentially could start that independent party, which everybody needs, or do they go and join Trump? My take on it is, throughout history, there have been many times where we've had more than two parties. Abraham Lincoln was, when he was elected, there were four major parties at the time of Lincoln. Our system is set up to where you do have to get that majority. You have to get that majority. It's not just a majority from the others. You don't just have to get more votes than everybody else. You have to actually get a majority of the votes in order to win, or a majority of the electoral college votes, I should say, in order to become president of the United States. So it naturally devolves, no matter how many parties you try to start, it devolves naturally into a two-party system every single time. There have been moments in our country's history where we've had more than one party, but because the way the system is set up, it naturally devolves back into a two-party system every single time. Now, what has happened over the years is the parties have shifted because of third parties that crop up, or fourth parties even that crop up, that take a large chunk of the population, and that has caused the parties themselves to reform. So at one point, it was the Democratic Republican Party, and it was, I believe, the Whigs, and then that shifted and changed, and when groups broke apart and there was more than two political parties, it causes one of the political parties to change and morph and shift. And there is a possibility of that happening now, particularly on the Republican side. We're seeing that there's a lot of instability on the Republican side. They haven't hunkered down the same way the Democrats have, where they've completely ripped democracy away from people. So they've protected themselves by becoming completely anti-democratic. The Republicans are still democratic by nature. And because of that, we're seeing this shift happening inside of the Republican Party. So the Kennedy campaign is a representation of the independents and the people that are independent who want to, they hate the Democratic Party. They hate the woke left. They don't want anything to do with that. But they're not Republicans. They're not the Mitch McConnell, they're not the Mitt Romneys. They're not the Lindsey Grahams. They're not the Bush era Republicans. They reject that as well. So there's a possibility of reforming the Republican Party into something that becomes a bit more populist and more mainstream. There's a possibility of that. Now, people might say, no, Kim, there's no possibility of that. That's not true. Study the history of the U.S. government and how the political parties have shifted. We've always reverted into a two-party system, but those parties have changed. They always change. Lincoln was a Republican. Democrats were the party of slavery, although actually I'm not one. It was Lincoln. Maybe that was the Democrat Republicans at that time. Anyway, the parties have shifted. The parties have changed. So there's a possibility of these changes, and that might happen within the Republican Party. So there's a possibility that RFK Jr. could join forces with Trump and help usher in a new mentality towards the Republican Party and shift that party and oust the old guard. And a lot of those old guard, by the way, are joining Democrats in a lot of ways. I mean, they're so anti-Trump. A lot of them have seemingly swung completely over to the left. I know many in my personal life who were Republicans their whole lives. They voted for Bush. They were, the Bush era Republicans, and now all they do is watch CNN all day. How many of those exist? Loads of people. So there's a shifting that's going on. There's a possibility the Republican Party could shift. So you never know what's going to happen. But I understand that giving up that 5%, this is so tough because, it's always, the excuse is always, now's not the time. We're on the brink of a war with Russia. We're on the brink of all these terrible things. Now is not the time. So you can't possibly make these reforms. So part of me wants to say, screw it, man. Stay in the race. She made a good case. Stay in the race. Go for that 5%. Create that independent party. Force the change. But then the other parts, but now's not the time. But, I don't know. I think we have to kind of ignore the now's not the time narrative, because they're always giving us that narrative. But here's what I do think is the issue, because I don't think we should focus on now's not the time, and because Harris Walls, we'll risk this presidency. We don't want to. Oh no. I mean, this is how Democrats got themselves into the tizzy that they're in. We have to stop Trump at all costs. We'll vote for any ridiculous idea as long as it's against Trump. So that now's not the time is not the right way of thinking. What the thinking should be is, what's going to be the reaction? Because I do think that if Harris wins and RFK Jr. does, even if they hit that 5% mark, and especially if they don't, he will be blamed for Trump not winning. And that's the question is, can you then build a viable third party when people blame you for the win, for Harris winning? Will that upset too many people to where, what does it matter if you reached your 5% and you're able to start your political party when nobody wants to join it because they hate your guts? That would be the question. And so the question then is, how many people that would join the independent party care whether Trump or Harris wins? I think a lot of people are in the camp of either way, they're both the same in a lot of ways. And so it might not matter, and you might still be able to form a viable third party at that point. I don't know, guys. I'm interested to hear from you. Kim at KimIverson.com. What do you think you should do? Do you think you should drop out and just support Trump and hope Trump wins? What if Trump loses? Trump loses anyway, which I think he will. I mean, I don't think it matters who wins. I think Harris is going to be president. So, one way or the other. So in that instance, what has RFK Jr. accomplished at that point when he could have started a third party and people would have been more independently minded at that? So there's a big gamble there, a lot to think through. I don't envy the guy, that's for sure. I almost am inclined to, for his own personal political career, I would say join Trump. I actually think he should have joined Trump as the VP then he would have had a real shot at the presidency in 2028. That is no longer the case. Obviously, he's chosen what's his face. So now, being part of the Trump administration, does that help him up his chances of becoming? I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Vice president, yeah. The other positions, I don't know. So I'm almost willing to say, just go for it at this point. If you're not going to be his VP, then just go for it, I suppose. Go for that third party option, and let's just see how the chips fall. I don't know. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. But I change my mind a lot because it's a tricky situation. Email me, Kim at KimIverson.com. What do you think RFK Jr. should do? Hey guys, this was just a clip of a longer show. Catch the full show by going to KimIversonShow.com. It is free. It airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go back now and watch this full interview. I highly recommend it. Again, go to KimIversonShow.com. Thank you so much for watching.